Welcome to the world's poorest and unhappiest country. The poorest country in the world almost every year in the last 62 years.
Poverty wears many faces, from empty bowls to shattered hopes. Some leaders siphon funds into their own pocket.
Corruption is not bad.
Hospitals crumble without modern equipment. And brutal swings from drought to flood make any plan a gamble. In this video, you'll see villages where children trade classrooms for fields. Markets once bustling now lie silent, and roads vanish under dust or mud. Each scene a proof of life on the brink. Stay with us through every story to see how people cling to hope and resilience. Subscribe now and embark on this unforgettable expedition across the 10 poorest countries in the world. Number 10. Madagascar. You might not expect to see Madagascar on a list of the world's poorest countries. After all, it's the fourth largest island on the planet, home to creatures you won't find anywhere else and landscapes straight out of a storybook. Yet beneath all that natural wonder, Madagascar remains strangely trapped in poverty, with a GDP per capita of $594.94. Imagine living on an island paradise where 2/3 of your neighbors survive on less than $2.15 a day. In 2025, over 20 million Malagasy people, representing about 66% of the population, do just that. That's more folks in extreme poverty than anywhere else in East Africa. Why? In Madagascar, food shortages push children into work to earn money, but labor steals time for learning, diminishing future job prospects and trapping families in hunger and hardship, as lack of education reinforces the cycle of poverty and child labor. A big part of the problem is that money meant to help, international aid dollars, too often vanished into thin air. In years past, leaders siphoned off these funds, leaving roads broken, hospitals understocked, and schools in ruins. And even now, after some reforms, corruption still creeps around the corners of government offices and business deals. When people can't trust that taxes or aid will actually improve their lives, why would they start new ventures or invest in their communities? That lack of faith holds back everyone. Then there's the question of getting around. Imagine about 31,000 miles of dirt tracks and roads crisscrossing this great island, but only around 3,700 miles are paved. When cyclones roar through, those dirt roads wash away, bridges collapse, and whole villages end up cut off. Farmers can't bring their crops to market. Medicine can't reach patients, and shoppers can't buy basic staples. Every season of heavy rain is a fresh obstacle. Madagascar's isolation doesn't help either. Sitting out in the Indian Ocean, far from Africa's mainland, goods must travel by ship or plane. That drives up costs, so a bag of rice or a bottle of cooking oil can cost more here than in many other places. And with just over 31 million people, most of them in tiny villages, there isn't a big enough local market to lure major global companies to set up shop. Still, there's hope. Better roads, reliable electricity, and clean running water could change everything. Stronger trade ties and smarter use of ports would help Malagasy farmers and craftsmen sell their goods abroad. If more businesses invested here, jobs would sprout up, incomes would rise, and families could dream bigger. Number 9. Liberia. Liberia's story feels full of promise and frustration at the same time. On paper, GDP per person sits at about $907.64. The land holds iron ore, gold, diamonds, beryl, tin, rare earth minerals, plus fertile soil for rubber, palm oil, and timber. Yet most people don't see that wealth in daily life. Years of conflict left deep marks. A brutal 14-year civil war cost over 200,000 lives and tore communities apart. Child soldiers, shattered families, ruined infrastructure. Those scars remain. Even after peace, rebuilding takes time. Roads, schools, and clinics often stay in poor shape. When basic services are missing, everyday life feels harder. Today, roughly 64% of Liberians live below the poverty line. Many rural areas suffer most. Farmers and workers struggle to earn enough for food, medicine, or school fees. City life can be slightly better, but still, many feel trapped by low pay and few jobs. Civil servants often find that their wages can't cover living costs, and private opportunities are limited. Corruption and heavy spending on perks make it worse. Political leaders yearly spend millions on luxury cars, allowances, housing, entertainment, and other benefits. For instance, each of the 103 senators and representatives gets about $45,000 to buy a vehicle lasting 3 years. Over one election cycle, that adds up to nearly $10 million just on cars. When budgets favor these costs, less money reaches hospitals, schools, clean water projects, or road repairs. This pattern feeds distrust and stalls growth. Still, natural riches could help if managed well. Mines for iron ore or diamonds, rubber plantations, timber forests, all could bring more steady income if rules were clear, deals were fair, and infrastructure improved. Right now, small-scale harvesters or miners often earn little, while the wider benefits slip away. Better oversight and fair sharing of profits might lift more people out of hardship. Past health crises add strain. The Ebola outbreak and an economic downturn around 2015 pushed many families deeper into need. Poverty rates rose after decades of relative peace. Recovering from such hits means that stronger health systems and economic buffers are essential. Looking forward, a mix of tighter budgets, stronger checks on spending, and community-focused investment could change things. Boosting farming with smart methods, improving roads so goods can move, and giving people fair chances to work or start small businesses can make a real difference. If leaders focus on clear rules, curb waste, and partner closely with local groups, the gap between rich resources and widespread need can start to close. Liberia's path won't be simple, but careful steps toward honest budgets and stronger services could help many move from daily struggle toward a more hopeful future. Number 8. Chad. Chad faces a tough mix of challenges. GDP per person stands at about $626. Harsh climate swings, weak roads and facilities, and political ups and downs all hold back progress. Even though oil and some minerals exist, much of the country remains cut off or underdeveloped. Weather extremes add pressure. Severe droughts often wipe out crops, cutting food supplies and income for farming families. For example, in 2022 and again in 2024, floods in the Lake Chad Basin displaced millions and drowned farmland. That cycle of too little rain, then too much water, makes planning nearly impossible. Fields lose topsoil, herds suffer, and people find it hard to rebuild before the next shock. Conflict nearby also spills in. Refugees fleeing unrest in neighboring lands enter eastern Chad, stretching already thin resources. Local services like water points, clinics, and schools feel the added load. At home, past uprisings and changes in power have shaken stability. When security feels shaky, investors stay away, and long-term projects falter. Most Chadians rely on farming or herding, but desert edges creep south, shrinking good land. Without steady water systems or stronger farming methods, many face failed harvests year after year. Roads often stay rough or missing, so even a good crop can't easily reach markets. That keeps incomes low and raises the chance of hunger. Healthcare remains very limited. At one point, there were just 345 doctors in the whole country, a ratio of 0.4 per 10,000 people. Clinics may be far away, and basic medicines can run out quickly. When families can't get care nearby, treatable illnesses can become life-threatening. Education follows a similar pattern. Only about 33% of adults can read and write. Schools may lack buildings, teachers, or supplies, so many children leave early or never attend. Limited skills then feed into low job prospects. An oil-based economy brought hope when production began around 2003, but a recession in 2014 hit hard. Plans for roads, clinics, or schools got scrapped when money ran short. That setback pushed more people into poverty and left services unfinished. Still, efforts aim to ease hardship. Projects to dig wells or improve water access can help families survive droughts. Introducing hardier crop varieties or better farming advice may boost yields. Peace-building work in border areas seeks to reduce security threats, while relief for refugees tries to ease pressure on communities. Even small wins, a repaired feeder road, a classroom fixed, a local clinic restocked, can matter greatly. Number 7. Niger. Niger hit a rough patch after the military took power on July 26, 2023. Since then, its economy has stalled because neighboring countries and the wider international community have put sanctions in place. These measures aim to pressure leaders, but they also squeeze everyday life in Niger, making it harder for people to find work, get food, or pay for basics. In the 2025 Human Development Index, Niger ranks 189th out of 191 countries. That spot shows big struggles in health, education, and income. Despite being the world's 7th largest supplier of uranium, many Nigerians see little benefit. Around 41% of the population, some 10 million people, live in extreme poverty. Foreign aid covers almost 40% of the national budget, so when aid dries up or is held back after the coup, essential programs feel the pinch right away. Niger also welcomes refugees from nearby Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria, about 225,000 each year. While helping people in need is important, hosting so many refugees stretches food, water, health services, and schools even thinner. Money that might rebuild roads or clinics ends up spread across more mouths and hands. Western donors had plans in place before the coup. For example, the European Union set aside £53 million for sustainable growth, governance, and education from 2021 to 2024. But after the takeover, the EU said it would end financial aid and pause security ties. France froze a £131.5 million aid plan. Germany put its £20 million program on hold, and the U.S. warned that $233 million in promised aid could be at risk. The World Bank stopped payments on projects not tied to private partnerships. All that adds up to fewer resources for hospitals, schools, and energy needs. Energy is already a headache. Niger depends on Nigeria for about 70% of its electricity. When supplies get cut off, homes go dark and businesses stall. With trade suspended by regional bodies like ECOWAS and assets frozen by the West African Central Bank, importing fuel or parts for generators becomes tougher. Basic services wobble, and daily life feels uncertain. Amid this, Niger's prime minister appealed for help, noting that shutting out aid risks the country's collapse. The tension between holding leaders accountable and keeping people safe shows how tricky the situation is. For families in towns and villages, the worry is immediate. Will there be water today? Can children go to school? How will farmers get seeds or sell crops if roads are blocked? Finding a way forward means balancing pressure on those in power with relief for people hurting now. Number 6. South Sudan. South Sudan is the world's youngest country, born on July 9, 2011, covering around 433,000 square miles with about 50 million people. It soon earned the label of one of the poorest countries, even edging out places known for hardship. Around 82% of South Sudan's people live in deep poverty, facing daily struggles for food, water, and safety. The land's name ties back to Bilad al-Sudan, meaning land of the black people, a term used long ago by travelers to describe areas south of the Sahara. Over the centuries, the region saw colonial rule, conquest, and the slave trade. When independence finally came in 2011, hopes ran high. South Sudan joined the UN on July 14th and the African Union on July 27th. Even Google Maps was updated to show the new borders. Yet in the years since, life for many has stayed tough. More than 60 ethnic groups call South Sudan home, with Dinka, Nuer, Shilluk, and Azande among the largest. People use English alongside local languages and follow Islam, Christianity, or traditional beliefs. Still, basic needs go unmet. Infrastructure barely exists. Many villages lack electricity, clean water, or roads. Schools and clinics are few and often under-resourced. Food often comes from Uganda or Kenya, adding transport costs to already high prices. Local farms face obstacles. Conflict can force families off their land, and crops fail when there's no safe way to plant or harvest. In 2018 alone, fighting cost some 400,000 lives and displaced millions. Even when talk of peace arises, flare-ups and ethnic clashes can return suddenly, trapping communities in fear and disruption. Natural gifts lie beneath the soil and across the plains. South Sudan holds about 3.5 billion barrels of oil, among the largest reserves in Africa, and has fertile land, plus around 60 million cattle, sheep, and goats. After independence, oil money was meant to lift the nation, but corruption and ongoing violence kept those hopes from materializing. Too often, revenue slipped away or was hard to use for schools, clinics, and roads because security was shaky and systems were weak. Today, life can feel like a tightrope walk. Parents worry if children have enough to eat. Families hope clinics have medicine. Farmers wonder if fields are safe. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. The title 10 Poorest Countries in the World reveals a stark truth. Most of the poorest nations are on the African continent, despite its wealth in natural resources. From arid Sahel to lush rainforests, scarcity grips families while minerals lie beneath their feet. In West Africa, a wave of coups reshapes leadership, each new government promising change. Can fresh rulers break age-old cycles of hunger and debt? As hopes rise with each election overturned, the question remains: will these bold political shifts unlock prosperity, or will resource riches remain out of reach in the 10 poorest countries in the world? Number 5. Somalia. Somalia's poverty picture is drawn in more ways than just money. The national MPI uses 13 indicators across education, health, living standards, services, and inclusion. If someone misses out on at least 35% of these weighted indicators, they count as poor. Right now, about 2 out of every 3 people fall into that group. 67% of the population is multidimensionally poor. On average, folks in Somalia face shortages in a bit over half of those key indicators, just above 54%. Life is toughest for people on the move or out in the countryside. Nomadic communities see about 81.5% living in poverty, and rural areas sit at 74.3%. City life isn't a full escape either. Around 61.7% of urban residents still struggle across several fronts, even if cash-based poverty may show a different number. Some regions face harsher odds than others. In Bakul, almost everyone, 97.4%, is deprived in many ways. Hiran isn't far behind at 90.1%. Meanwhile, places like Awdal and Lower Shabelle show lower rates, but nearly half the people there still lack basic needs in things like health, schooling, services, or social inclusion. Looking at money alone misses a lot. About 21.4% of Somalis are multidimensionally poor, but wouldn't count as poor by strict cash measures. Those households can be hit by overlapping troubles: bad health, weak schools, shaky services, so they risk falling deeper into trouble if not noticed. Climate hits are big here. Rains failed for 2 seasons once, pushing over half the country into needing food aid. Drought and hunger aren't just words. One village lost 110 people in 2 days to starvation. Rural folks often set out on foot toward Mogadishu's feeding centers, and heartbreaking reports tell of children dying along dusty roads before help arrives. High food prices, too little food, few wages, and scarce jobs keep pushing families down. Agriculture and livestock matter most, but with climate swings and limited tools, growing enough or keeping animals alive gets harder each season. When rains fail or floodwaters wash away fields, recovery feels almost impossible without big help. The government's hands are tied. Widespread challenges go beyond what local budgets or services can tackle alone. Foreign aid and smarter local efforts can ease some pain, focusing on water access, emergency food supplies, and strengthening basic services like clinics and schools helps in the short run. Longer term, finding ways to cope with unpredictable weather, like drought-resistant crops or water storage, and boosting local inclusion in planning can give people a better shot at a steady life. It's a big task, but each small win, clean water within reach, a health post stocked, or a school that stays open, can matter. Number 4. Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso faces steady efforts to improve life, yet many hurdles remain. About 40.1% of people live below the poverty line. Almost 9 out of 10 poor people are in rural zones, where farming is the main work, but the rains can't be counted on. With unpredictable rainfall and farming tools that often fall short, families wrestle with food shortages and child malnutrition. Since 2015, security problems have added to this struggle. Repeated terrorist attacks have driven many from their homes. Back in January 2019, under 50,000 people were internally displaced. By March 30th, 2023, that jumped to around 2.01 million. These shifts slam health and schooling. By December 2024, about 424 health centers were affected, leaving roughly 4 million people with limited care. And by March 31st, 2024, around 5,319 primary and secondary schools were closed, disrupting education for over 818,000 students, including around 394,000 girls. In rural communities, the picture can feel grim. Families depend on fields for food and income, but when rains don't come or come too late, harvests shrink. Without modern tools like irrigation or better seeds, farmers can't bounce back easily. Roads to markets often stay rough, so even a decent crop may spoil before it's sold. That keeps people locked in a cycle. Low yields mean little money, which means less ability to invest in the next season or in children's schooling. Health services are hit too. When clinics close or lack staff, treatable illnesses can spiral. If a health center in a village stops working, families may travel long distances to find care, if they can at all. Education follows. Closed schools or unsafe routes mean children miss lessons. Girls often bear the brunt, as families may pull them from classes first when risks rise. Political ups and downs strain national budgets and planning. Without stability, long-term projects like fixing roads or boosting irrigation get delayed or canceled. Yet hope persists. If peace can return, it opens space for rebuilding. Introducing modern farming equipment, pumps for water, better seeds, simple storage solutions could help farmers grow enough even when rains falter. Reopening health posts and schools with support to keep them safe and staffed brings immediate relief. Number 3. Haiti. Haiti shows the gap between what a country could be and what many people actually live through. Even though the land has natural beauty and a rich cultural heritage, most folks don't see much benefit. In 2024, Haiti ranked 3rd among the poorest countries worldwide and stands as the poorest in Latin America and the Caribbean, according to the World Bank. The UN also lists it among the least developed countries. Yet so many Haitians know hunger, sickness, and unstable days. Around 73% of Haitians live on less than $1.90 a day. That means nearly 3 out of every 4 people are extremely poor. With such tight budgets, families often skip meals or rely on bits of food here and there. Basic needs like medicine or school supplies can feel out of reach. When money is that scarce, long-term plans, saving for a small business, building a sturdy home, or paying for health checkups rarely happen. Several forces push these struggles. Political instability keeps shaking things up. Leaders change, protests flare, and everyday life can feel unpredictable. When the government can't hold steady, projects for schools, roads, or clinics stall or never start. That leaves communities waiting for the basics: a safe classroom for kids, or a clinic with enough medicine and staff. Natural disasters hit Haiti hard and often. Hurricanes sweep in with fierce winds and floods, knocking down homes and fields. Earthquakes shake towns to rubble, leaving families homeless and services paused. Each time, people try to rebuild, but the next disaster can come too soon. Even with help from abroad, aid teams, supplies, and money to rebuild, lasting recovery remains tough. Rebuilding roads and schools takes time and steady support. When funds run out or projects stall, scars stay open. Poor education makes it harder for young people to find steady work later. Schools may lack books, classrooms, or enough teachers. Illness spreads easily when clean water and medical care aren't always there. Malnutrition stays high because families often don't have enough food or the right nutrition. When kids grow up on limited food, their bodies and minds miss chances to develop fully, affecting their future health and work options. Still, the love for Haiti's culture and community strength shines through. People share music, art, traditions, and a spirit of helping each other. Small projects like local gardens, community health groups, or efforts to rebuild a school show resilience, but these need steady backing and safer conditions to grow. Number 2, Central African Republic. The Central African Republic, CAR, carries a stark gap between its resource wealth and what most people face daily: The land holds oil, uranium, diamonds, and gold, but by 2024, the country remains one of the poorest in the world. About 71% of people live below the international poverty line, and chronic malnutrition affects over 40% of the population. Many families go to bed hungry or weak from long-term lack of key nutrients. Conflict and violence have plagued CAR for years. Fighting and unrest force more than 600,000 people to leave their homes and seek refuge elsewhere. Ethnic and religious divides, along with a history of weak governance, keep stability out of reach. When violence flares, markets close, farms get abandoned, and families lose what little they had saved. Even after calm returns, the fear and loss can linger, making it hard to rebuild trust or restart businesses. Health is a big worry. Maternal mortality stands at an alarming 692 deaths per 100,000 live births. Around 100,000 people live with HIV, without a large drop in that number over the years. Malaria, respiratory infections, diarrheal diseases, and tuberculosis remain common foes. Life expectancy sits around the low 50s. Clinics and hospitals often lack enough staff, medicine, or even basic supplies. When someone falls ill, the nearest help can be far away and under-resourced, so treatable issues may become severe. Education also struggles. With many schools damaged or understaffed, children may miss years of learning. Low literacy and limited training narrow job chances for young people. When skills are scarce, it's harder to grow businesses or offer services that could lift communities over time. Economically, GDP per person in 2024 is about $371, and GNI per capita has hovered around $480 since 2021. That flat trend shows little growth or new opportunities. Without steady investments in roads, power, and markets, farmers and small traders cannot easily get goods to buyers. Even resource extraction, oil or minerals, often fails to benefit local people as deals and infrastructure fall short. Number 1. Burundi. Burundi often shows up near the very top of lists naming the poorest countries. About 64.9% of people live in poverty, and the country records one of the lowest GDPs per person. The reasons pile up, and they all hit people's daily lives hard. First, Burundi has seen at least 5 civil wars. Each conflict cost many lives and sent millions running from their homes. With so much fighting, farmers can't settle into steady planting and harvesting. Fields go unused or unsafe. When families can't grow their own food, hunger takes hold fast. Next, the government struggles to manage money and resources well. Rationed electricity and fuel sound helpful, but they often backfire. When businesses and workshops can't count on steady power or fuel, they stay small or shut down. Jobs remain scarce, and new ventures rarely take off. Without clear budgets or enough funds for public services, roads stay rough, clinics stay short on supplies, and schools stay crowded. Land shortage adds another layer of strain. Burundi's population grows fast, but land is limited. Farmers and families need plots to live on and farm, but there simply isn't enough. This squeeze fuels tension. People argue over fields and grazing areas. Since most livelihoods depend on tiny pieces of land, any turn, like a bad season, pushes households closer to struggle. Then come natural disasters. Droughts dry up crops. Hailstorms can smash seedlings. Floods and heavy rains wash away homes and fields. When rains turn fierce or fail entirely, families lose food and shelter. Displacement becomes common as people flee damaged villages. Each setback means starting over with even less, and the next disaster can hit before recovery is done. All these forces overlap. Wars leave deep scars, making trust thin and rebuilding slow. Weak public systems keep basic services out of reach. More people chase fewer acres, spurring conflicts, and weather shocks keep knocking out fragile gains. With so many hurdles, climbing out of poverty feels almost impossible. Still, plain talk shows where help is needed. Peace and stability must hold firm so farmers can work safely. Governments need to handle funds better, allocating budgets to clinics, roads, and schools instead of patchwork fixes. Finding ways to share land fairly or boost small-scale farming methods could ease crowds on plots. Preparing for disasters, like setting aside supplies or reinforcing homes, can help families bounce back faster. Life in Burundi remains a daily test against forces beyond most people's control. Yet clear steps, steady peace, wiser spending, fair land use, and disaster readiness would give many a better shot at a more secure day tomorrow.